Good afternoon, everyone. How is your afternoon going? It's a little dreary out there. All right. Hey, Jason, how's the day going, man? Alrighty. So it is 3 o'clock. It is time to chat about today's topic. So I did actually have a little peek at test number 1 in my face-to-face class today, and they mentioned that today's topic is not actually covered on test number 1. So what I would like to do is just kind of double check that with you guys and make sure that we're all on the same page with that. And I do want to remind you that I have posted up a little practice quiz, so you can attempt the practice quiz. It's a nice review for the questions that I would expect for you to see on test number 1. And then it'll give you an idea of how to just program things into Moodle and how Moodle accepts answers. So you can go in and retry that as many times as you need. So Jason, yeah, if your answer is off by 1 cent, I'm not going to make a really big deal about it. And Moodle should have a little bit of a buffer built into it. So if you answer a particular way and you're off by like what I've inputted the correct answer to be by 1 cent, then Moodle will still end up marking it correct. So as long as you're within the neighborhood, I would say within 0.05, as long as you're within 5 cents of Moodle's answer, it should mark it correctly. So let's see, part 1 does not have any total profit function stuff. Part 2 does not have any total profit stuff. And part 3 does not either. So your test number 1 will not contain today's topic, but we should do a couple examples from today's topic just to make sure that we're comfortable. And I'll try to build in a little bit of review along the way as well. All right, so I am going to, let's bounce back over to here. And we'll start with working on this example. So we want to kind of work through a couple questions involving total price, total revenue, total cost. And usually we're going to be utilizing the total profit function as a formula. So that hopefully you guys would have seen that in your reading. And that is that the total profit of a business is typically given as the selling price minus the cost price of what you're working with, times X. X here represents the number of items we're going to sell as the business, and then we subtract off our fixed costs. Can you put the laundry dryer? Mm-hmm. So in our first example, we're going to look at the following situations. So it's going to cost us $4.15 to bring an item in from the supplier we're working with. What we're going to do as a business is turn around. We're going to kind of mark up that $4.15 to $5.25. That's going to be our selling price that we utilize to sell to our consumers. And then we know the fixed costs as well. This could be like a monthly fixed costs. Fixed costs tend to deal with things like rent or like buying new materials for things. So in our case, we have a $1,500 fixed cost for the business. And yeah, Alexander, you're on the right track there for sure. So we're going to try to find the total profit function in terms of X using the formula we have here. So X, like I said, is going to represent the number of items that we're selling as our business. And then we're going to try to figure out the question, how many items would we have to sell in order to make a profit of $5,000. All right, so let's tour down the road that Alexander has suggested for us. That is, we know what the selling price is, we know what the cost price is, so we can substitute that directly into our total profit formula. So we know the selling price is $5.25, we know the cost to bring one of those items in is $4.15. And we do know our fixed costs as well there, $1,500. Yeah, I think that's the answer we're gearing towards is 5,909, 5,910. So I think you're on the right track there, Alexander. So what we can do is grab our calculator. We can simplify the coefficient here that's going to be inside of our brackets. Let me just grab a calculator here. So we got 525 take away 415, so $1.10. So that would be the answer for part number one. This is calculating the total profit function. The total profit function essentially tells us that for each item that we sell, from the point of view of the business, we're bringing in $1.10, and that minus $1,500, that deals with kind of this overhead expense that I have to pay eventually. So some of the money that I earn by selling this item is going to go towards paying that fixed costs, and over and above that, then all that's kind of like gravy. That's all profit for us. So what we're going to do next is try to figure out, how is going to be the production level that I need in order to make a profit of $5,000. So what is this suggesting here? Well, this is suggesting that, we should probably put $5,000 in for my profit. So substitute that in for TP, and then see if we can solve for X. So if we add 1,500 to both sides, it's going to give us 6,500 is equal to $1.10 times the number of items times X. And then to isolate X, we can divide by $1.10. And yeah, we should end up with X is equal to 5,909. And we get this kind of like repeating decimal situation. And I mean, we can't really make 0.09 of an item. So what we're going to do in these situations is just round to the nearest whole number. So we could round either up or down. So yeah, we could round, it makes sense, I think, in this case to round to 5,909. If you wrote down 5,910, I would not mark that incorrect. I think that would be fine as well. Jason has asked us, should I round up all of my answers? And please don't do that. We're rounding up in this particular instance because X, if I'm selling items, I can't sell 0.09 of an item. So it kind of makes sense in this particular instance to round up. So I need to get a whole number of items. So that's why we're doing a little bit of adjusting in this question. In general, I would like you to keep most of your answers to 2 decimal places of accuracy. So wouldn't we need to divide? So Megan's asking, wouldn't we need to divide 5, 9, 10 by 5.25 to get the number of items we would need to sell? So what I would say to you, Megan, is we're selling those items at $5.25. That's correct. I'm not going to argue with you on that. But it does cost us a little bit of money to bring each of these items in. And in fact, the question says that each item costs $4.15 for us to bring it in. So it's not as easy as just dividing by 5.25 because there's actually that cost associated with it, right? So you'll notice that when we make our formula, we actually subtract these two numbers to get the $1.10. That's the actual number that we need to do work with, is the $1.10. I'm not sure if that.
So sorry, is the 5,910 an answer? Isn't that in dollars?
That's going to be in items.
Oh, I don't understand then. How did that translate into items? Oh, maybe I can sort of understand that. Maybe if you could clarify that for me, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. So I think it kind of comes down to just like looking at our total profit function. So TP, our total profits in dollars, our fixed costs are in dollars. And S and C are given in dollars per item. So this is kind of like, this is me getting super technical. But S minus C is in dollars per item. And X is in items. So when I multiply my dollars per item by the number of items I get, then I'll get dollars.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's helpful, but what you need to know is if we're solving for X, X here is going to represent the number of items that we're making or selling. Everything else is given in dollars.
Okay. I'll take that and try to digest it.
So I guess another way to kind of help clarify, Megan, would be to look at, if I want my profit of $5,000, that's what I want to have as profit. I have my fixed costs, which are 1,500. I have to pay those first. So what we're really dealing with is a situation where I need to make enough stuff to get $6,500. So that's one way to kind of start thinking about this problem. So how many items? So if each item I make, so S minus C, we found to be $1.10. Each item that I sell or produce in this particular situation nets me $1.10. So how many items do I need to sell at a $1.10 kind of markup to deal with this $6,500? Well, that's exactly what we calculated right here. Right? And if you do that division, we should get 5,909. So I need to actually sell 5,909 items at $1.10 to be able to pay, essentially to be able to get 6,500, because 1,500 of that is my fixed costs, and then I want $5,000 profit. I don't know if that's helpful or unhelpful. That's just like kind of an alternate way without kind of looking at the formula. It's a way you can kind of maybe intuitively kind of, you know, get your way through the question.
Yeah, I think I'll be able to go with that. Thanks so much.
Hey, no worries. So I would say, you know, like if that makes more sense, you know, see if you can kind of set up that situation here in the next example and see if you can come up with the same X value that I'd get kind of going through the algebra. So I don't know if it's a nice thing or an unnice thing, but this idea of total profit, total revenue, total costs can be connected back to our merchandising section, because we are dealing with the selling price and the cost price inside of our formula. So in our next example, we know the cost price is $1.25 to, let's say, produce one of the items that we want to sell in our market. Let's call that item a widget. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that cost and we're going to add some markups to it. So we're going to mark it up 25% of the cost for overhead expenses and mark it up 15% of the cost for profit. If that's the case, part one is asking us, is it possible to find the selling price of the widget? Alexander's given us the formula to use here inside the chat. In part two, after we've calculated the selling price, then we should be able to get at the total profit function. And then in part three, I want to kind of appeal to your intuition about what we think break even means and kind of discuss this idea of breaking even. So while you're finishing copying that down, another housekeeping thing, I have started marking the first assignment. I'm hoping to have those all completed and back to you by the end of the night tonight. So you should have your marks and feedback in by tomorrow, tomorrow morning when you log back in. So I do believe $1.75 is correct, Alexander, if you wanted to use that to jump into part two. Yeah, so those of you that I think have done question 1, 2, and 3, I know I've marked those and I've posted the feedback PDF file for all of you. I'm kind of currently in the process of marking question 4 and question 5. So hopefully those will be posted for you later today. That's kind of like, that's my goal for tonight, is to hunker down and finish my marking. I realized on the weekend that I had 120 assignments to mark and I got a little anxious and procrastinated until Sunday, so I apologize. Alrighty, so we know that the cost price is $1.25. We know that we're going to do a markup for overhead expenses. So I'll underline that in red. We're going to add 25% of the cost price to account for overhead expenses, or to account for our fixed costs. And we have one other markup. So let's see, that's going to be a red markup. And then we have our markup to account for profit as well. And underline that in green. So we're going to mark up one more time 15% of the cost price to account for profit. So 0.15 of our cost price. So that is in green. And I do believe that we do get $1.75 even as the selling price. Okay, how is that? That's hopefully a little bit of a review. You probably will have an example very similar to that on the test on Wednesday. Yeah, 9,000 seems like the right number for part 3. That sounds right. Just kind of looking at your algebra. You know, if your algebra is right, which I think it is, right, it's 0.5x. So yeah, we need to make twice as many things as $4,500. Yeah, so 9,000 should work. Perfect. Yeah, 9,000. That's great. All right, so let's talk about the total profit function. We know that it's going to be our selling price, which we just found is $1.75, minus our cost price, multiplied by X, take away our fixed costs. Was that something that I needed to know, or was that just an accidental click? I think we're okay. I think they ended up muting themselves. So here's our total profit function, given the information that we know about the question. Essentially, the profit is 50 cents per widget that we sell, and then we have this subtraction of the fixed costs of $4,500. So that would be how we answer part 2. And to me, when I hear the word break even, that means I produce just enough stuff so that I can pay for my overhead expenses, for my fixed costs. Okay, so in number 3, we're going to be substituting in TP equals to 0, and then trying to solve for X, trying to figure out how many things I need to make in order to pay off my fixed costs. I thought you just said that you got 9,000, Megan, or was that somebody else that said that? Then what did you get 9,000 for? Now I'd be curious to know where your 800. Yeah, I'd be curious to know where the 800 comes from. I'm not getting anything that I'm not really getting anything that looks like 800. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so if you get the 4,500, right, that's our fixed cost. We need to divide that by 50 cents because that's the price that we're able to sell each item for. That should give us 9,000, not 800. So I'm wondering if it was just like a calculator. Just a calculator error on your part. Okay, so this is a situation here. If I know my fixed costs are 4,500 and I know that it costs, or well, I get 50 cents for each item that I sell, doing that division, which is essentially what we're doing right here, gives us 9,000. So that's the number of items that need to be sold in order to cover the fixed costs, but not make any additional profit. Will we see any nonlinear total profit function on the test? No, actually, the material that we cover today will not be on test 1, but will be covered in assignment number 2. Yeah, so this typically doesn't get into test number 1 because sometimes different classes end up being at different places. But I do test this material on assignment number 2. And because I think, some students need a little bit of extra time to be able to kind of mull their way through some of these ideas. So I kind of respect that and let you do it on an assignment rather than on a test. Okay, I'm going to scroll up a little bit so you can start copying down that third question that I want to cover today. And then we'll open up the floor for some questions if you guys have some questions maybe about the test or some other things like that, about the assignment or assignment number 2. What I might do is I might save Monopoly for next week. No, that's good. Okay, so if I know some of you have some questions, I'd like to address those questions in today's kind of like lesson part, like lecture part. It shouldn't take us too long to finish up this third example. So we should have a little bit of time after we're done here to answer questions you might have about the first test or other things. I mean, if you're asking about other things, I make no guarantee that I know what the answer is, but I'll try to answer it if you want me to. And I'm not sure if you all know, but I've been trying to kind of keep the days up to date for you. So if you go into the Moodle page, I have updated today's kind of lessons. So if you want to see some more examples, just click on the links here. So if you click on this first link, it'll give you some more video examples of the total profit, working with the total profit function. 3.4 is on Monopoly. So this link down here will go over a couple examples regarding Monopoly. But like I said, I think that's something that we'll save for kind of the start of class next week on Monday, because it's a little portion of the assignment. So I would like to do at least one example, I think, of Monopoly with you. And then we'll start into simple interest topics next week as well. Yeah, Alexander, a way that I like to think about shutdown is it doesn't make sense for me as a business to keep bringing this item in if I'm selling it at a loss. So what we're really doing is we're looking at our total profit function, right? So we're looking at our total profit function, and it's this markup number here that gives us some of that information. So if I look at this markup number, right? So S minus C is our markup in dollars. If the selling price ever becomes less than the cost, that's technically when we're in shutdown. So from the perspective of the business, if I'm selling at a price that's less than what the cost price is, well, then I'm really selling at a loss, right? I'm really selling this and I'm accumulating almost like a negative kind of profit, which is not something that a business really wants to do. So that's how I think about shutdown. Jason, hold on to that question and ask it again afterwards. Yeah, Megan, I mean, certainly we're looking at a very kind of contrived situation where this business produces like one item. And if we're only producing this one item, it really doesn't make sense for us to sell it at a loss. Realistically, businesses are probably selling more than one item. So this total profit function they're working with has several components that kind of need to be taken into account, in which case, you know, maybe they'll sell one item at a loss if they know they're making a very big gain on some other item. So yeah, like there's potential for a business to sell at a loss. Typically, they want to account for that loss in some other way by selling some other item. At least that's kind of my intuition on one way we can think about that instance. From the perspective of our class, we're just going to say, you know, it really doesn't make sense for us to sell at a loss because we're going to pretend we're only selling one item. So the best way to answer number one is to say, well, it costs us $50 to bring in a pair of shoes. I probably wouldn't want to sell it for $45, right? In fact, I wouldn't really want to sell it for anything less than $50 anyway, because then I'm going to be selling at a loss. So that's probably the best way to answer number one. If you were to put in an actual number, like if you like put $45, I'm not going to disagree with you. I probably wouldn't want to sell these shoes for 45 bucks because I know that I'm selling it at a loss of $5. So yeah, if you would put like a number in here that was less than 50 to answer the part one, that would be fine. But I'm trying to kind of explain it in a general kind of way here in number one, right? So I know my cost is 50 bucks. I don't really want to have a sell price for less than $50. Okay, in part two, we are given a sell price. So we're going to turn around and sell our shoes for $115. A little bit of review. Let's try to figure out the gross profit margin and the rate of markup. So what do we know? We know the cost is 50 bucks. We know that selling price is now 115. Yeah, Fiona, that looks good. Those are the numbers we're looking for. Nice. And so yeah, the difference between the cost price and the selling price, that's going to be the markup that we've added to this particular item. So if I want to figure out what the markup is, the markup in dollars is going to be my selling price minus the cost price. So the markup in this particular example is our 115 selling price, subtract $50 it costs us to bring the shoe in. And what is that, $65? Okay, so it's going to be important if we want to use the M over S and M over C formulas, it's going to be important to know what the markup in dollars is. Yeah, from here we can utilize our ROMU and GPM formulas. So I personally like these ones a little bit more because they're relatively straightforward. I just put the markup divide by the sell price or the markup divide by the cost price. Okay, so I know that the ROMU does come out to be a really nice number. It comes out to be 1.3. Remember, we're going to interpret this as a decimal number. So what this tells us is that the rate of markup on this shoe is actually 130%, which is certainly not unusual, I think, for clothing, right? It typically doesn't cost quite as much to produce clothing, and clothing tends to get sold at a much higher price than what it is to produce, especially if we're producing it in some of our Asian countries. Can you write it as 1.3 on the test? If I'm not specific, I mean, I might say, you know, input it as a percent. So just kind of take a look at what the test says, right? The test will tell you how to input that number. But this is why it's important, I think, to show your work and be able to upload a PDF after you're done the test, because let's say you put the answer 1.3, but the question says input it as a percent. I can look at your work and know that you've done the work correctly and award you the full marks for that question. But I mean, you know, I'm going to have to be specific on the test, Jason. Otherwise, you know, Moodle's not going to understand the difference between 1.3 and 130, right? If that's a bit too much of a gap for it. So I'm going to have to be specific on the test about how to input these numbers. So yeah, just kind of be mindful of that. It should, you know, if it doesn't say, it usually means a decimal, 2 decimal places of accuracy is good. And quite often I don't require units either on the test. So that's just another thing to kind of be mindful of. What did we get? I know that I think Fiona had the right answers, like 5652. Is that what we get for this other one? 5652, 5652. Okay, great. So those are our GPM and ROMU for this particular question. So that should clear up part 2. I'm just going to scroll back up so I can kind of see what part 3 says. So how many shoes must be sold to break even? And how many shoes must be sold to get a profit of $10,000? So these are 2 separate kind of parts to this question. Yeah, both of them exactly, Jason, are going to ask us to find X, how many shoes we have to sell. So one of them deals with the break even number, which is total profit of 0. The other one deals with a total profit of $10,000. Do we know the fixed costs? Yes, 1,550. Okay. Yeah, so let's jump in. Let's try to figure out our total profit function. Our sell price is 115. Our cost price is 50 bucks. And our fixed costs are 1550. So I get a total profit function of the markup times X minus our fixed costs. So there's your total profit function. If you want to go the function root, and then we're just going to break this up into 2 kind of separate parts. We're going to look at how do I get the break even bit. That means TP equals to 0. Or in other words, I'm trying to figure out how many shoes I need to sell in order to cover my fixed costs. So we take our 1550, divide by how much money selling a pair of shoes will give to us, which is 65 bucks. And did someone come up with a solution here? 1550 divided by 65. So like 20, yeah, like 23, 24 shoes. Yeah, so if you had said 23 shoes or 24 pairs of shoes, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. We probably wouldn't input this answer as 23.84 because, you know, we can't really sell 0.84 of a shoe. So yeah, either 23 or 24, I would be happy with that. Okay, let's go back and just utilize our profit function to figure out how many shoes I got to sell to make a profit of $10,000. So in this case, start with our $10,000. Okay, we're going to add our fixed costs to the $10,000 that we'd like to make in profit. And once I have that number, which is 11,550, then I can divide that number by how much money I make per selling a pair of shoes, which is 65 bucks. And yeah, so I think Fiona has the correct answer here. So 177, that feels about right, 0.69. Nice, so yeah, Jason's got it too. And again, so we're gonna say here, you know, it's not, we don't wanna sell 0.69 of a pair of shoes, that's weird. So let's round this to 177 or 178. First, is that Cinderella? Yeah, so she lost one of her shoes. Yeah, if it had come out to like 177.5, I probably would have laughed a little bit because, you know, you might actually be able to sell 0.5 of a pair of shoes. But there you go. That's kind of the idea with the profit function. The idea is to kind of multiply the markup by the number of units, subtract off the fixed costs if we happen to know what they are, and then utilize that formula to kind of do a little bit of, these are linear equations, right? Do a little bit of linear equation work to kind of get at, typically we're trying to solve for X. Typically we're trying to find how many things do I need to sell or how many things do I need to produce to hit some kind of production level. How did those feel? Did those kind of help clarify some of the topics? And like I said, if you wanted to go back and look at some of the extra videos that I posted on Moodle, that might be helpful as well. And I know the textbook's going to have a few more examples as well. The textbook tends to use the alternate formula, so just be mindful of that. It's going to say the total profit, I believe, is P minus C. Right, so the hard copy textbook uses P takeaway C, but from my perspective, this small p and the capital S are interchangeable. So you can use either formulation for the total profit function, it'll be fine. And it's been a good day for you with math. That's good, yeah. I was kind of worried about what you were saying there earlier, but I'm glad it's started to kind of make a little bit more sense along the way, Megan. Okay, so I know Jason had a question about some stuff. So why don't we, let's see, how can I do that? I'm going to go into the background, and while you're finishing copying that down, I'm going to open up the practice quiz just so you can kind of see. I essentially want to show you how to do some formatting. Hey, look, that's cool. So it looks like some of you have attempted this quiz already, which is great. So let's take a little peek. So this is, like I said, just a kind of a sample quiz to let you know how, like, kind of what the expectation is for inputting stuff into Moodle, how Moodle is going to mark stuff, etc. So, you know, let's take a look at question number 1. So I'm confusing how to input the answer for the question 3, question 4. Okay, we'll take a look at that in a second. So let's say we go to our local restaurant, you know, we have a bill that includes GST, and that comes to $31.50. Okay, so how much of this total accounts for the GST that we paid? How much is GST in British Columbia? 5%? 5%? I know, I always forget too. I think it's 5%, right? So this restaurant bill should have 5% GST. Wait, do restaurants charge? Okay, thank you, Laura. I was like, I'm pretty sure they charge GST, but don't charge provincial sales tax. Okay, so I know that 5% of this 3150 is GST. So how would I figure out how much GST I've PST on the alcohol? ETOH, what's ETOH? Oh, ethanol only, gotcha, yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. It's only on the only on our alcoholic part where we pay the PST. Okay, I'm just going to pop that question over here so that I can do a little bit of work with you so we can try to calculate what we think this number is going to be. And then I'll show you how, I would, what my expectation is for test number 1. So I know that I've paid, there's some like amount that I've paid. Yeah, we can kind of use something like this, like a PAT, PBT, 1 plus TR kind of situation. I know my price after tax is 3150. Actually, I'll just write the formula out. So after tax, I get 3150. I don't know what the price before taxes is, but I know that the tax rate is 5% GST. So we should be able to calculate the price before tax by dividing by 1.05. Does it come out nicely to 30? If that's true, that's excellent. That's just really helpful for us. Yeah, that's reasonable. So that's what I get. I get 30. So $30 is my price before I pay GST. So how much of my total is actually GST? Yeah, it's going to be $1.50. Okay, so this is kind of my expectation for what you might write down as like your rough work that you're going to submit to the Dropbox. So, if you write down something like this so that I can kind of see what you're thinking, that's great. That allows me to give you partial marks in case something goes horribly wrong. So I'm going to take that $1.50. I'm going to come back over here to notice that the dollar sign is here already. So I don't need to input the dollar sign. I'm just going to put my $1.50 in like this. So that would be the expectation for Moodle. It's just going to expect that final answer. Most of the time, you don't even have enough space to put any work in here anyway. And that's essentially what we want. When you do the quiz, you should be able to kind of come along down here and be like, check my quiz, or is it down here in like the bottom corner or something? So once you're done, you can finish the attempt and it'll tell you whether or not your things are correct or incorrect. Now, let's see. I know Alexander had a question about, for 3 and 4. So these are a little bit bigger boxes, and these are the ones where I'm going to say it looks like it appears as if it wants you to put more work in, but it really just wants the final answer. So even if the box is large like this, guys, just put the final answer in. Don't enter any units. So, if I'm looking at question 3, it says 14% of what number is 25. So let's do that quickly. 14% of some number is 25. So let's take 25 divide by 0.14. And so I get something like, 178 point. So I that's what I would put in as my final answer. I'd put in 178.57. And then I'd go on to the next question. I think in a question like this, you don't necessarily need to write down any rough work for me. I mean, either you're going to get it or you're going to not. Oh, Jason, that's a good thing to know. The practice quiz does not show which questions we get wrong. Let's fix that. I can fix that for you by doing this. Practice quiz, timing, grade, layout, question, review options. I want to show you all of the things, whether correct. After the quiz is closed, yeah. So that should work. And I mean, just to be a nice guy, I'll show you the correct answer too. How's that sound? Okay, so updating these settings should allow you guys now to go back and know if you have a correct or incorrect answer. It should also give you the correct answer, so you can kind of hopefully piece together how to make your way to that correct answer. Okay, also on the docket for me today, I'm sorry, I haven't updated the instructions yet. But like I said, all that's really going to change is the timing of the test. So instead of being open from 2 to 8, I'm going to go from, I think we agreed from 12 to 6. So that's going to get updated tonight. I'm going to go through and update that. So the tests, and I'll put an announcement out for you guys as well. So the test will be available from 12 to 6. I'll be available in my office on campus from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And you can kind of tune into the Zoom, like our Zoom meeting room if you have any questions or something's going kind of funky. I will be available if you need to see me. What do you mean by show the instruction? I don't know what that means. Is it 20 minutes for each set of questions? Yes. So for example, it'll be 20 minutes and it will be these 3 things, or sorry, these 4 things. So evaluating an expression, simplifying an expression, a question about taxes, and a question about currency conversion. There is a time limit for each section. That is correct. So the time limit for part 1 will be only for those 4 questions. Okay, and then you'll have a new 20 minutes once you open up part 2. Okay, and part 2 has these as, it is a little bit about time management. Yeah, so a lot of what this test is, you know, I put a little bit of a time crunch on this one, so you can't like walk over to some online website and have somebody answer this question for you, essentially. Right? You have got your notes. You do not have to do the sections in numerical order, Laurel. You can do whatever part you would like to do first. So if you're comfortable with part 2, if you're comfortable with rate of markup, gross profit margin, merchandising, trade discounts, do that first, right? You know, walk in there, get a little bit of like skipping your step, right? And then go on to the next section. Section 3 is about your supply and demand stuff. Finding the equilibrium point, discussing a shortage or surplus situation, and then discussing a shock situation as well. Okay, and of course the Dropbox is here as well. So, you know, what I would suggest is, you know, open up the question, open up the part, sorry, and kind of work away at your 4 questions, get all of your ideas. If it's something you can answer quickly, just like toss it right into Moodle. But I would say focus your attention on writing down what you need to on the paper. That's important. So when you go to upload your PDF, the more I can see on that PDF when I'm marking your test, the better it's going to be for everybody, right? Because if you have a correct answer on your PDF, but you know maybe you didn't have quite enough time to get it done in part 2 or whatever, you know, I have that flexibility to award you marks if I've seen that you've written this down correctly. Jason, I believe on part 3 you're not doing any drawing, if I remember correctly. What I'm going to do I'm going to share this screen so that I can go in and actually look at the question, but I don't think you have to draw anything. Yeah, so there is no drawing on test number 1. Okay, there's no drawing of equilibrium. But I do expect that you know how to, for example, calculate the equilibrium price and quantity, and talk about a situation of shock or talk about a shortage or surplus. So it's that kind of stuff. Okay, any other kind of final thoughts on the test here? If not, you guys can pack up and kind of go do your thing. I will. Dropbox is for your rough work, yeah. So as soon as you're done all 3 parts and you've written down all of any rough work that you need, then you're going to upload that to the Dropbox for me. You do not need to come to the Zoom meeting. The Zoom meeting will be open from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock if you have any questions or problems as you're writing the test. But it's not mandatory to come. I am not policing you. I am not going to have you turn your cameras on, for example. Test will open at noon, yes. So right now it says 2 to 8, but I'm going to change that tonight so it says 12 to 6. Okay, so you technically have 6 hours to write this test, but each part only is open for 20 minutes, that's all. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do part 1, take a little break, do part 2, take a little break, do part 3, that's totally fine. I do not care how you do this test, as long as it gets done before 6 o'clock and you upload your PDF by 6:30. Awesome, Jason. Yeah, if you have any kind of major questions or concerns, I will be available tomorrow. I'll be around. So just email me. We can set up a Zoom chat. If you're around Kelowna, I will be available office hours from 9:30 to noon on Wednesday as well, if you're on Kelowna campus. Yeah, you're very welcome, guys. Like I said, this is like, you know, as long as you guys are not being jerks about the whole cheating situation, then I want this to be, you know, as the least invasive kind of test possible. Yeah. Hey, sounds great, Megan. Yeah. We do not have a class Wednesday. Wednesday is dedicated to the test only. So once you're done writing that test, you can come say hi if you want. I'll be in the Zoom chat, but it's not mandatory to come to class on Wednesday. Yeah, you're welcome, Alexander. No worries. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, guys, with that, I'm going to end our day here today. Email me if you do have any questions. Okay, guys? Take care. Oh, could you please show me how to do question 3 on the practice test? Yes. Question 3 on the practice test. Okay, so we have, let's see, we have 2 different exchange rates. Oh, the one where it asks, oh, that practice test. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think that was in here. So that was this question 3 right here, right? The 14% of some number, I think. Yeah, okay. Just let me, I'm just going to copy paste that and bring that over into a space that I can work on that question with you. Okay. So 14% of some number is 70. So I'm looking at this specific thing right here, and I'm going 14% of something is 70. So what we kind of typically did during those kind of early lessons was we said, okay, let's convert 14% to a decimal number. Let's convert the word of to a multiplication. So I have a multiplication. And then in order for us to solve for this unknown number, this question mark, we would divide both sides by 14%. That's kind of typically how we would tackle something like that. So what we got here, 70 divided by 0.14. That's going to give us about 500. Hey, no worries. It's been a little while since we've done the basic kind of percent stuff, right? But if you set it up as percent of something equals something, put your question mark in for that thing you're trying to figure out, and then I think it kind of becomes clear if you need to multiply or divide. Yeah, you too. Thanks so much. All right, any other kind of final thoughts here, guys? All right, take care, guys.